Good morning. I'm Sean Trapp, your president here at Goof. Just take a moment and ponder this. Right around now, 75 years ago, a group of our congregational founders were in discussions with joining the American Unitarian Association. Today, we are a long-standing and strong community of Unitarian Universalists with a lot to celebrate. I have a few thank yous to give folks that made today possible. First, the 75th Anniversary Committee, led by Lynn Cusick. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, led by Lori Morton. The Sunday Services Committee, led by Ward Hammond. Our music, led by Dionisio and our wonderful choir. We can't have had and couldn't have had service today out into the Greenville community and the world without our sound and video tech crew led by Richard Fuller and Richard Nelson. Our hospitality folks and folks running the kitchen, especially John and Carol Henson, we have a lot of food after service, and that's not a joke. Please bring your appetite and join us. Also, a shout out to the auction committee led by Lucy Fernandez. We are going to have a great auction week, which begins today. Please check out the many items and experiences that you could bid on in the fellowship hall after service. A big thank you to Dr. Nicole Kirk, who traveled from Oklahoma to be here with us today. And lastly, but not least, to Reverend Chris, who has been holding our community spiritually. And now I could start my spiel. Whether you've been with us on Sundays for a long time or visiting for the very first time today, we welcome you to our service. This congregation is diverse in beliefs, with participation open to all who agree to embrace our covenant, mission, and values, regardless of your partisanship or lack thereof. We are a welcoming congregation to people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, races, and ethnicities, and abilities. We unconditionally welcome you as your full, authentic self to our community of care, spiritual growth, and personal growth. Our congregational mission is to strengthen our connections to one another and to our planet by enlivening minds and spirits, building community through liberating love, and advocating fiercely for justice. It is a custom in this congregation to acknowledge visitors. It is a custom in this congregation to acknowledge visitors and newcomers. If this is your first time here, would you please mind raising your hand so we can acknowledge you? Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. All are invited to join us for coffee after the service. New and newish folks are invited to grab a green mug located here, or they'll be inside the door of the fellowship hall, so we can easily spot you and speak to you during coffee hour. You're also welcome to fill out one of our gold cards located in the pew in front of you, so you can stay informed regarding all of our activities. Just simply drop the card in our offering basket or in the box at the hello table in the foyer. Please know that whatever your religious history, whatever your spirituality, all people of goodwill are welcome here. Your presence makes us better. Your presence makes us whole. And now, after all of that, our service will now begin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Priscilla Phillips, and I am your worship associate for today. The chalice lighting begins our service. As we continue to celebrate Goof's 75th anniversary, let us remember that we are continually doing the work of this congregation. When we do this work, we touch lives. When we touch lives, we change the world. May this chalice flame that we now kindle continue to remind us during our time together of both our ministry and our mission. May we continue to be agents of change in the world, both individually and collectively.
Maybe you're missing something in the air. I got a name, but it don't matter. What's going on? It's calling here. You have a life, but it's torn and tattered. Maybe you're losing pieces of your heart. You have a world, but it stopped turning. You lose the day and gain the dark. Love was a fire, but it stopped burning. Spray your heart, save your soul. Don't dry your love across the hall. Find your fate and your fortune can be told. Release, relax, let go, and now let's recover your soul. Lazy old sunset sinking like a tear. Alone at night in a losing battle. That perfect world can never clear. You have to fight for the things that matter. Spray your heart, save your soul. Don't drive your love across the coast. Find your fate and your fortune can be told. Release, relax, let's go. Hey, now let's recover. But hey, now let's recover yourself. But hey, now let's recover. Hey, now let's recover your soul.
Good morning and happy 75th anniversary, Goof. I'm the Reverend Chris Hockman, so honored to be serving as your minister. And I'm equally honored to introduce our guest minister/professor who has traveled here to help us celebrate the 75th anniversary of our congregation's founding. The Reverend Dr. Nicole C. Kirk is the Reverend Dr. J. Frank and Alice Schulman Chair of Unitarian Universalist History at Meadville Lombard Theological School and a historian of American religious history. She has served UU congregations in Ohio and New Jersey and is currently the program minister, a part-time position at All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She joined the Meadville Lombard faculty in 2012 after serving 8 years in the parish and earning her Ph.D. at Princeton Theological Seminary. Her research interests include religion, business, mobility, and material culture in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Over the years, she has met and worked with many of Meadville Lombard's international partners in the Czech Republic, Japan, and Transylvania. In 2023, the Religious Society of Czech Unitarians, yes, that's a thing, gave Dr. Kirk the award for supporting Czech Unitarianism. Now, I must say personally, Dr. Kirk was my academic advisor and history professor at Meadville Lombard, of which I am an alumnus, not sure how that works. One of the many things I appreciate about her is her commitment to showing up for her former students and the milestones of their ministries, showing up for our congregations, and showing up for Unitarian Universalism literally around the world. And when she shows up with warmth and kindness and humor, in addition to all of her professional talents. And many of you will remember Dr. Kirk having led this year's Sunday service at General Assembly, in this very year that we are also, as Unitarian Universalists, commemorating the 200th anniversary of the founding of the American Unitarian Association. So I now invite you to extend an exuberant goof welcome to the Reverend Dr. Nicole C. Kirk.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. It is my great joy to be with you here this morning. And I bring greetings from Meadville Lombard Theological School. In fact, you have over 50% of the faculty here because Dr. Catherine House from Meadville Lombard in the white jacket in the middle there is also in the house today. And so I told her I was coming by, and she lives nearby and visiting family, and so she came on over and wanted to be with us for the celebration. So you have 2 professors from Meadville Lombard Theological School, and of course I bring, thank you. That's for you, Catherine. And I also bring greetings from All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Right now they are in the middle of their first service of the 2 services on Sunday, and I bring greetings from that congregation, the largest congregation in the world. Just before I begin the call to worship, our opening words, I just want to say how fortunate you are that you have Reverend Chris Hockman as your wonderful minister. That was epic. I started my academic teaching career later in life after first serving in the parish, and those students in those early days of my teaching remain the ones closest to my heart. I remember those times I was learning how to be a professor as they were learning to become ministers, and Chris is one of those early folks in my career, and I followed her career and her professional ministry and her call with great interest. We have overlapping friendships, overlapping connections, and she remains close to my heart, and I'm so joyous to be able to celebrate this anniversary with you and to get to meet you. I have a chance to meet you, so it's wonderful. Do you all broadcast live, or are you on Zoom? So hello to folks who are, where's the camera? I should have asked earlier. Oh, there are a few of them. There's cameras. Hello, folks who are watching online. I'm thinking of you this morning, and it's great to be with you as well. Here's our opening words. It's written by a former student of mine from Meadville Lombard and now a colleague, Julian Jamaica Soto, and it's from her marvelous meditation, their marvelous meditation manual, Spilling the Light. Some people are used to keeping rules. Don't cross the street when the light is red. Only sensible. It turns out that keeping rules isn't the same as keeping covenant, which asks us, instead of keeping a bright line, to keep our promises. To what have we promised ourselves? To this place, this time, this moment, to this community, and even tenderly interconnected this planet. We promise ourselves to the idea that we are each and all human beings. We promise that there is something moving between us that we cannot tame and cannot measure. Our chalice is a reminder that what flame we keep inside us cannot light the way. The light must spill to shine. The thing you must be is yourself, unadulterated, shedding the willingness to journey alone as though you are made of something hard and unforgivable. You are human. You belong. Right here, right now, and together. And together we will chase away the sickness, the secrets, and leave only open the possibility that the future is a space for growth. Let us join in singing our opening hymn. I invite you to rise in body and spirit for hymn number 298, Wake Now My Senses. That's the gray hymnal.
Good morning. I'm David Funderburk. I'm the Director of Religious Education here at GOOF. And today is the first Sunday of October, and on the first Sunday of the month we do our classes for children and youth a little different. It looks a little more like we do it in the summer. So anyone who wants to follow me downstairs, all ages will head downstairs to our RE Commons today for activities. And normally we ask parents to wait until 12:15 to pick up your kids from classes, but on these first Sundays, if you want to head downstairs after the service and go ahead and see what your kid's up to, feel free to come down and meet us. So I want to welcome any children or youth or anyone of any age who'd like to come up close to hear our story today, to come sit in the front pews or on the floor at the base of the steps. Welcome. Now, this year, you may have heard that this year our congregation is celebrating its 75th birthday. I'm curious, what are some things that you think of when you celebrate a birthday? What are some things that are usually at a birthday celebration? Birthday cake? And I hear that we might have some good food at coffee hour today, so we'll have a little bit of food to celebrate. What else is around at a birthday? Balloons, maybe? Do we have any balloons today? I'm not sure. What about gifts? Do you ever have gifts at a birthday? Presents! Our story today is about gifts, but it's about a different kind of gift than what you might be thinking of. Our story today is about the kind of gift that you find inside of yourself. And you might not even know that it's there yet. It may be a gift you haven't yet discovered. So our story today is called Geraldine the Music Mouse by Leo Leone. Geraldine had never heard of music before. Noises, yes, many noises. The voices of people, the slamming of doors, the barking of dogs, the rushing of water, the meows of cats in the courtyard, and of course the soft peeping of mice. But music, never. Then, one morning, in the pantry of the empty house where Geraldine lived, she discovered an enormous piece of Parmesan cheese, the largest she had ever seen. Eagerly, she took a little bite from it. It was delicious, but how would she be able to take it to her secret hideout in the barn? She ran to her friends who lived next door and told them about her discovery. "If you help me carry it to my hideout," she said, "I'll give each of you a big piece." Her friends, who loved cheese, happily agreed. "Let's go," they said, and off they went. "It's enormous! It's gigantic! It's immense! It's fantastic!" they shouted with joy when they saw the piece of cheese. They pushed and pulled and tugged, and finally they managed to carry it to Geraldine's hideout. There, Geraldine climbed to the very top of the cheese. She dug her little teeth into it and pulled away crumb after crumb, chunk after chunk. As her friends carried away their cheese tidbits, Geraldine peered in amazement at the hole she had gnawed. There she saw the shapes of two enormous ears. Cheese ears. As soon as her friends were gone, she went back to work again, nibbling away at the cheese as fast as she could. When she was halfway through, Geraldine climbed down to have a look at the forms she had freed. She could hardly believe what she saw. The ears were those of a giant mouse, still partly hidden, of solid cheese. To its puckered lips it held a flute. Geraldine gnawed and gnawed until she had finally uncovered the entire mouse. Then she realized that the flute was really the tip of the mouse's tail. Astonished, exhausted, and a little frightened, Geraldine stared at the cheese statue. With the dimming of the last daylight, she fell asleep. Suddenly, she was awakened by some strange sounds. They seemed to come from the direction of the mouse's flute. She jumped to her feet. As it grew darker, the sounds became clearer and more melodious until they seemed to move lightly through the air, like invisible strings of silver and gold. Never had Geraldine heard anything so beautiful. Music, she thought. This must be music. She listened all through the night until the first glow of dawn filtered through the dusty window panes. But as the cheese mouse was slowly bathed in light, the music became softer until it stopped altogether. "Play, play," Geraldine begged. "Play some more." But not a sound came from the flute. Will it ever play again? Geraldine thought, as she gobbled up some of the crumbs that lay around. When the next evening approached, it brought the answer to her question. The music began faintly at dusk and lasted until the break of day. And so, night after night, the cheese flutist played for Geraldine. She learned to recognize the melodies, and even in daylight they lingered in her ears. Then, one day, she met her friends on the street. They were desperate. "Geraldine," they said, "we have no more food, and there is none to be found anywhere. You must share your cheese with us." "But that's not possible," Geraldine shouted. "Why?" asked the others angrily. Because it is music." Her friends looked at Geraldine, surprised. "What is music?" they asked all together. For a moment, Geraldine stood deep in thought. Then she took a step backwards, solemnly lifted the tip of her tail to her puckered lips, took a deep breath, and blew. She blew hard. She puffed and peeped, she tweeted, she screeched. Her friends laughed until their hungry little tummies hurt. Then a long, soft, beautiful whistle came from Geraldine's lips. One of the melodies of the cheese flute echoed in the air. The little mice held their breath in amazement. Other mice came to hear the miracle. When the tune came to an end, Gregory, the oldest of the group, whispered, "If this is music, Geraldine, you're right. We cannot eat that cheese." "No," said Geraldine joyfully. "Now we can eat the cheese because now the music is in me." With that, they all followed Geraldine to the barn. And while Geraldine whistled the gayest of tunes, they ate cheese to their tummies' content. Now, I wonder if Geraldine would have discovered her gift of music if it weren't for the help from her friends. I wonder what gifts you have hiding inside of you that you have yet to discover. Let's keep those wonderings in mind as we head down to your classes.
Our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all the financial support for our many ministries from among the congregation. Generosity is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and collective well-being. You are now invited to participate in generosity as the ushers accept the gifts of the congregation. Thank you. It is our custom in this fellowship to share the joys and the sorrows that shape our lives, honoring each one with the lighting of a candle. We all have moments of celebration and of struggle. By sharing these experiences with one another, we can support and uplift each other on our journeys. The first one is a candle of joy from Laura Christenberry, the student body at Greenville High School. In 1 week, they raised over $500,000 for Jasmine Road. Way to go. And as you go into the fellowship hall today, you can enjoy some of the delicious food that came from Jasmine Road. So. The chimes are a wonderful addition to Goof. They produce a beautiful sound with no score, just air through their pipes. Kind of like Unitarians who occasionally discover wisdom in themselves without a script. And make sure before you leave today, you walk out to the Memorial Gardens and check out our wonderful wind chimes that are referenced there that are way up in the trees. So. My Uncle Roy Wilbanks passed this week, and now there are only 3 left out of all my aunts and uncles. Rest in peace. Another anonymous one: for all the breast cancer survivors, here in person and virtual. We're so glad you're here. We will light one final candle representing all the joys and sorrows present in our hearts that remain unspoken. We will now observe a brief moment of silence before the meditation words begin.
Our meditation words today are from the Reverend Richard S. Gilbert. We meet on holy ground, brought into being as life encounters life, as personal histories merge into the communal story, as we take on the pride and pain of our companions, as separate selves become community. How desperate is our need for one another, our silent beckoning to our neighbors, our invitations to share life and death together, our welcome into the lives of those we meet, and their welcome into our own. May our souls capture this treasured time. May our spirits celebrate our meeting in this time and in this space. For we meet on holy ground.
It is a big year for Unitarianism. Greenville UU Fellowship, or as I hear you call it, Goof, is a congregation that started as a discussion group in the living room of a private home, is turning 75 years old. Who would have thought that all of this would come from such humble beginnings? That we gather here to celebrate this big anniversary in this magnificent building on this 9.5, I hear a half acre, 9.5 acre campus. 75 years is a significant amount of time, and of course this is also the bicentennial of the American Unitarian Association. Today we gather to celebrate and to position ourselves for the future. We are heirs of the past, but you must never forget this part. We are the makers of the future. So imagine this. After several years of meeting for discussion at Gil and Clay Rowland's house in Greenville, South Carolina, the conversation turned to what was new and what was possible with religion. But how the fellowship tells the story, it may not be the whole story. That's how you open the story in your booklet for the 50th anniversary. A story told 25 years ago, beautiful with interviews and all kinds of photos telling how you came to be. Yes, indeed, there were discussions in the living room of the Rowland house, and there was a conversation about religion. But there's more to the story. Every fall, I take my students in the archives of Meadville Lombard Theological School for research. For many of my students, it is their first experience with archive materials, and Chris reminded me that I did this assignment back when she was in school and how exciting it was. Students, for many of them, for the first time working with archival material, and while my students researched their topics, I opened the files I had asked our librarians to find, and they had found for me the Greenville UU Fellowship file from our collection that we obtained from the Unitarian Universalist Association almost a decade ago. They are called the Congregational Files, and these are files that the association opened up over the years, and they kept some of the records and some of the correspondence. Many times they have materials that churches and congregations and fellowships sent to the American Unitarian Association and then the Unitarian Universalist Association. Some of these files are very thin, very disappointing from a historian's point of view. Some of these files are multiple file folders and very fat. Well, Greenville, I'm happy to report you have a nice medium-sized file. And I was delighted and took as many photographs as I can, and I am sharing them with your Reverend Chris so that you can have access to them. And what I found out in the opening pages and the letter exchanges with the American Unitarian Association and this fellowship is a little bit more to your story. So again, as the story goes, one night, the discussion group at the Rowland House, you venture into a discussion of religion. This discussion group has been meeting for about 5 years. The children have been playing out back in the Rowland yard, in the swimming pool. Clay Rowland watches the kids often with other parents, and Gil and others are having these conversations. And one of the stories is that someone brings up religion. They talk about what they hope that religion that they would be a part of would be like. And then someone in that point of the conversation says, well, that sounds kind of like Unitarianism. Well, telling that story makes it sound like you became a Unitarian fellowship by accident. And that's not the whole story. In fact, several of the newer members of the group at that time, this is 1949 going into 1950, Jacqueline Rainwater, Josephine or Joe Doughton, and the Hoffers had all been Unitarians before they ever moved to Greenville. It was Joe who suggested that the discussion group should think about becoming a Unitarian fellowship. And there's more. Now, but before things went much farther, this conversation happened, a mention of Unitarianism. Gil Rowland, who had put his heart and soul, along with many others, to keep this group going, he approached the suggestion rather cautiously. After all, he had started this discussion group in his home, and he was intrigued by the Unitarians, but he had questions. So Rowland made a long-distance telephone call to the headquarters of the American Unitarian Association to learn more. This is in either 1949 or 1950, a long-distance call to Boston. First of all, that takes time back then. Second of all, it's super expensive. So this is a really important question that Gil Rowland had. He wanted to know, did Unitarianism favor integration? In 1940, South Carolina, that wasn't just a question. It was a declaration, and a bold one in a state where Jim Crow laws enforced racial segregation in every part of public life. It was a key question for the Greenville discussion group because many of their discussions centered on racial justice and integration. Many of the guest speakers for the discussion group were working in the civil rights movement, like Matthew Perry and Duncan Howlett. The group was interested in Unitarianism, but not if it meant giving up their commitments to racial justice. So Rowland called up the Unitarian Association and asked them, do you favor integration? And they answered, what's your guess? Yes. Let's be a little more bold. Yes. Yes. They said yes. I imagine he was relieved. The discussion group held a special meeting to see if there was enough interest to form a Unitarian fellowship, and 30 people showed up. 14 expressed interest in signing on as a charter members of the fellowship, and again, lost to memory and not in your 50th anniversary book, but found in the files in the archives at Meadville Lombard, is the following statement, that of the 14 charter members, 9 had been Unitarians before in churches and other places like Charlottesville, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and all the way up in Michigan. So Unitarianism wasn't an accident. It wasn't just kind of this moment where it was brought up and people went with it. There were people already there who had had an experience in a Unitarian church or fellowship, and they brought that desire to this discussion group that maybe this could be something more. So on November 26, 1950, leaders of the discussion group applied to become the Unitarian Fellowship of Greenville, which you fondly call yourselves? Thank you. And the application was accepted. But the beginnings of the, yes, yes, yes. Yes, the application was accepted, and the beginnings of this fellowship was just getting started. Now, the gathering of Greenville Fellowship was a part of a larger movement in Unitarianism from the late 1940s to the early 1960s. How many people knew that you weren't just this one little fellowship bubbling up here in Greenville, South Carolina in 1950, that there was a whole movement that you were a part of? Did you know you were a part of a movement? Yes, no, maybe. So you were. From across the United States, from the late 1940s to the early 1960s, across the United States, from Boulder, Colorado to Kirtland, Ohio, from Falmouth, Massachusetts to Columbia, Missouri, and all over the country, in living rooms, in private homes, groups gathered for discussion groups, for community, to start a religious fellowship that invited them to bring their whole selves and their questions. In many communities, individuals like Greenville placed advertisements in local newspapers. Friends told friends. The curious came to check it out until they had attracted enough interest to apply to become a fellowship. These little startup Unitarian fellowships, as I said, were a part of a bigger moment that we now call the fellowship movement. Very handy in terms of language. The fellowship movement. It was one of the most, well, no, it wasn't one. It was the most significant period of growth in Unitarian history. And so when we talk about our membership and we talk about how many congregations we have, we would be a much smaller association if this growth movement, which you were a part of, had not happened in the 50s and 60s. So the fellowship movement was born in the late 1940s when Unitarian leaders took stock of the Unitarian faith and they noticed a number of, how shall I say it, disturbing trends that did not bode well for the future of the faith. Geographically, the majority of Unitarian congregations were clustered in New England, while other congregations in the West and the South and the Midwest were distant from one another, scattered, and there was all these towns and villages and cities that probably could do with a Unitarian and later Unitarian Universalist church. Church membership was on the decline. Unitarian congregations at that time had fewer people joining. They didn't have enough ministers. They didn't have enough money to run the association effectively. They began to worry about the future of Unitarianism. Now, it was Reverend Lon Ray Call, a minister who helped start dozens of Unitarian churches and served as a minister at large for the American Unitarian Association. He came up with a crazy idea: how to grow Unitarianism. He asked the question this way: what if the American Unitarian Association trusted lay people, not ministers, they left us out in this one, not ministers, to start their own congregations. The idea was to keep it simple. To start a fellowship, you would not need a minister, no minister required. You only needed 10 people. You needed some basic bylaws and a commitment to liberal religion. That's it. It was a do-it-yourself model. And many of these fellowships, they did exactly that. Lay people would form a religious organization and they would run it. And many times, and in most of these stories, it starts in a living room and then it goes to rental space where people have to bring in all the materials for Sunday school and fellowship meetings and bring everything out. And eventually, their hope was, and many of these fellowships were able to acquire a building and, for many of them, eventually a minister. But that format for starting a fellowship was intentionally flexible. The idea was radical, and the national office was desperate enough to try it. So first, the American Unitarian Association hired Monroe Husbands to head the national office, and asked him to start Unitarian fellowships all over the United States. Now, Husbands was not a minister. He was a lay person. He was super organized, by the way. In my years as a historian, how many times have I seen his correspondence? Even though he had an assistant, he was the one corresponding with almost all the leaders in our fellowship movement. So they gave him, as I said, an assistant and a budget of $2,300. It's 1948, so that sounds better back then. And they asked him to lend support, to send resources when they asked for it, and guide folks in the process of becoming fellowships. He also arranged a minister at large to go visit these small fellowships when they felt ready or that they thought they could get a little growth spurt if they had 1 to 2, sometimes 3 months of a minister leading them. Now, the first fellowship started during this program of the fellowship movement was in Boulder, Colorado in 1948. So you guessed it, you are early pioneers in the movement. Things moved along slowly, but fellowships began to pop up here and there and right here in Greenville in 1950 when you signed your charter and you said yes to becoming a Unitarian fellowship. Now, starts in 1948. 10 years later, there are 320 new fellowships across the country, and they have approximately 12,000 new members within the association. And here's the kicker. 75% of that 12,000 were never Unitarian before. So this was a transformative moment in the history of American Unitarianism, now today, the Unitarian Universalist Association. And what's also interesting is that 1958 is not the end. This goes into the early 60s. So it continues to grow. Fellowships continue to be started. People continue to find Unitarianism, something that matches the mid-century, post-war, baby boom lives as they're building new towns, extensions of cities, and starting new lives after the war. Now, in many ways, as I said, it was a raging success. Over time, many of these fellowships acquired buildings, many acquired ministers, but also a lot of the fellowships struggled because of the way they began in that tight-knit group in a living room. Many of the fellowships became quite insular. Sometimes they had trouble working with ministers because they were so into the do-it-yourself they didn't think about the partnership possibilities. For many of these fellowships, there was a strong embrace of humanism, but a type of humanism that didn't have room for other spiritual expressions. Those combinations of elements in some of the fellowships made it where they were never able to really grow. And many of those fellowships that survive are still in about the 100-member size, 75 years later. And then there are the ones who were able to move and to grow and to see potential. And guess what? You are one of the outlier congregations of the fellowship movement. Yes, you. Yes. You were a part of the movement and you understood the possibilities. Now, it doesn't mean you didn't have difficulties, and it doesn't mean that you had places where you kind of went, sideways and then had to right yourself up. It doesn't mean there's times that your membership in those early days dropped to such low points you wondered if you were going to close your doors. All of that's true. In fact, you also voted no to the Unitarian Universalist merger in 1960. You were like, no, we don't want the Universalists. You survived that too. You outgrew Gil's house. You bought one house, you sold it, you bought another, and then you changed your mind and bought another property. So sometimes you weren't clear in your direction. You went through ministers, extension and guest, and half-time, and full-time, and interims, and short-tenured ministers. But you've also had some really good religious leadership that came not only from each and every one of you, leaders that I'm looking at right now in this room, but also the fabulous and beloved ministry of Reverend Jennifer Slade, which again, that's another piece missing from your 50th. To be a woman minister in Unitarian Universalism in the 1990s was really difficult. Really difficult. And I say that because I started my first settlement in 1998. And it wasn't always kind, Unitarian Universalism, to women ministers in this period. And so for her to come, and Jennifer, to answer that call and to be with you for such a long period, to help you get that stability, to help you see that possibility is an important part of your story. And through it all, even the down times, even the hard times, even the times when you question yourselves, you kept growing, you kept finding ways to connect, you kept showing up in this community, you kept on asking the hard questions around integration and racial justice in this state, in this town. Who would believe what came out of a regular gathering in a living room discussion group where the children swam in the swimming pool in the backyard when the parents met? Who would believe? How is it possible that you have this spectacular building, 9.5 acres, a fantastic minister, who could have imagined the impact this fellowship has had on the larger community? What would Greenville be like without this fellowship? Yes, let's give it a round of applause for that. Heirs of the past, makers of the future. That's a line from the Reform Jewish Yom Kippur service, which just wrapped up earlier this week. And it's all around us in this room. It's here now in the great cloud of witnesses who I hear may have softly moved the chimes yesterday. The great cloud of witnesses, the ancestors, the Unitarian Universalists who have gone before us, the leaders of this mighty fellowship. We are heirs of the past, heirs of all of it, the mistakes, the missteps, the brokenness, the disappointments, and we say this at All Souls. Religious community, in our case, church, it will disappoint you. That's a part of being in community with other human beings. But the important part is the ways that we can come back together and find that love and find those promises and live together well. We must never forget the hard parts because they help guide us to do better, to dream bigger. Our inheritance is larger than the failures. It's also the leadership, the creativity, the adaptation, the rich imagination of those who went before you, or we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. All of this, all the people in this room, all what you have done would not have happened if we hadn't come back and recommitted ourselves again and again. Let's get specific for a moment. Greenville, South Carolina is different because you exist. How many people have found an accepting community for the LGBTQIA+ identity here? Yes. How many refugees had a soft place to land because of you? How many families found housing through your outreach? How many children learned through our religious education programs that questions are welcome here? How many of our children learned that the music is not just outside of them and Instagram and the world, but the music is inside of them. It's inside of each and every one of you. I have to get Phyllis over here. And Chris. How many religious refugees found healing from old church wounds? How many found a church, a fellowship that they never imagined existed, but if they thought to themselves, if I could create a church, this is what it would be like? How many people have found religious community here? Yes. Yes. And so my charge to you on this day, as both a historian and an active minister, is to do the following. In this pivotal moment, I turn to Howard Thurman, the great preacher, the writer, one who had deep connection to nature, growing up in South Florida in a segregated society, in a coastal community in the early 20th century. In his autobiography, Thurman reflects on his connection with a tree in his family's backyard that gave him sustenance. It's so important that in his autobiography, he has on one page photos of family members, and on the other page, a photo of an oak tree, right? And some of you may have a relationship with a tree like this, yeah? Or your garden. This is the words of Howard Thurman, talking about the importance of that tree in his life. When the storms blew and the branches of the large oak tree in our backyard would snap and fall, but the topmost branches of the oak tree would sway, giving way just enough to save themselves from snapping, I thought to myself, I needed the strength of this tree. And like it, I wanted to hold my ground. The oak tree became his place to sit, to find peace. Leaning against the trunk, he would reach down to the quiet places of his spirit, take out the bruises and the joys, and unfold them, and talk about them. He said, I could talk aloud to the oak tree, and I knew that I was understood. Well, what I love about Thurman and these early memories of his life and how this tree was a place of empowerment and tenderness for him is that he did not stay under the oak tree. The oak tree helped him hold his ground. The oak tree had roots that ran deep, but he thought about flexibility and possibility, and he went on to form into a creative, dynamic minister at Morehouse College and Howard University, and later the development of the Church for All Fellowship, the Fellowship of All Peoples, one of the first multiracial, multi-faith congregations in the country, a place that concentrated on peace movement, the arts, and social justice. Many describe him as a mystic, and he was that, but he was also a force of social justice and nonviolence. After all, Thurman's meeting with Gandhi in 1935 and 36 was life-changing. Gandhi challenged him to rethink religion and inspired Thurman to write Jesus for the Disinherited, and an outline of the nonviolent tactics for social justice that we know through the civil rights movement. So that oak tree, like the roots of Greenville, was not the stopping place. It can be a teacher. And like Thurman, he learned the branches of the oak tree that were stiff and rigid and unchanging. Those are the ones that would snap and fall. He noticed that the topmost branches of the oak tree would sway, giving way just enough so that they could be flexible and not snap loose. They opened themselves up to the wind and stayed rooted. And so that's your challenge on your 75th anniversary. to lean into the roots, to honor them, but to not stay under that oak tree of history, to find your flexibility, to find that possibility, to connect, to love, to transform this world, to transform Greenville. Or as Christian de la Riviera says, we must shine. We must shine now. This is the goal towards which we stretch step by step in our own time and our own pace. As our beauty unfolds and our hearts open, we become gentler and more compassionate, yet brighter, more empowered, and fearless. We have been holding on, holding back, playing small, hiding your light under a bushel. Enough of that. It's time to go. We are needed now, all of us together. All of those who feel a calling to be who we are to the fullest, to make a difference, to give it all we got. Yes, Greenville UU Fellowship, or as you fondly call yourselves, yes, all of you, may you shine brightly in the long night ahead and show the world a different way of loving and living and committing to justice and to growing your full self in this troubled world. Blessed be, and amen. I invite you to rise in body of spirit. We're singing a hymn number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do.
Do
join me by saying the words on the screen as we extinguish the chalice? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I was asking where I did the benediction from. So, all right. May the truth that sets us free, the hope that never dies, the love which casts out fear and hate, lead us forward together until the day spring breaks and love is everywhere. Go in peace on this day. Go with strength in your heart. Go with joy in your movement. Know that you are blessed and be a blessing. Amen.